As children and young people lined up to leave the Manchester Arena at 10:30 in the evening, there was a loud bang near the exit. "What's going on?" people asked. "What just happened?" The noise was the blast of a suicide attack. A lone man, 22-year-old Salman Abedi, with an explosive device, targeting children for enjoying themselves. 21,000 people had been present. Of those, he managed to kill 22 and injure 59. It's still not clear exactly why he did it. US intelligence claims, according to the Daily Mirror, that he had helped making a big and sophisticated bomb. He'd just returned from Libya, where an ongoing civil war and a big ISIS foothold is the major legacy of a UK-supported military intervention in 2011. So it's possible that, unlike the Westminster attacker Khalid Massoud, he received some training and support from ISIS. As the news spread through the city, parents and relatives urgently began posting messages on social media, searching for their loved ones who hadn't come home. Some people didn't have quick and easy answers, but they tried to help. A taxi firm offered free rides to anyone who needed to get home. A homeless man rushed in to help the victims. World leaders offered their standard refrains. Donald Trump, the first Twitter president, declared absolute solidarity with the people of the United Kingdom. Theresa May, who has been surprisingly reclusive in her election campaign, came out to say that the attack was cowardly. All such attacks are cowardly. The police are investigating. The emergency services were very brave. And our country and our values would win. In short, a great deal of very little. But some media already knew what to say, even before the culprit was identified, even before a cause had been ascribed to the attacks, and the so-called Islamic State had made yet another claim of responsibility. With blood in the streets, they went on the attack. First, ghoulish journalists descended on the relatives of those who had been in the arena. One of them tweeted that he had dealt with over 50 journalists online, 2 had found his mobile number, and 1 from the Telegraph had turned up at his house. He said, "I still don't know if my brother is alive." Where they couldn't find relatives to exploit, they put out fake news. The Daily Express falsely claimed that there had been a gunman outside Oldham Hospital, adding to the panic for no good reason. The Daily Mail rushed out a collage of children supposedly missing, many of whom were on different continents at the time of the attack. Having done that, it then posted another article blaming trolls for posting photos of fake victims of Manchester attack, which was quickly taken down. Then there was the rush to reiterate meaningless cliches. The Telegraph got us started with an opinion piece explaining that the attack was on our children and our values. We're dealing with an enemy that worships death as much as we celebrate life. But then came the political instrumentalization of the attacks. Some media outlets wanted to use the murder to change the result of the coming general election, and to this effect rallied behind a Tory campaigning theme. This was rather urgent because, in a gaffe-prone campaign, Theresa May's Conservatives had started out with a huge lead, which was rapidly reduced to single digits. They'd been trying for some time to stigmatise Jeremy Corbyn as soft on terrorists. Corbyn had won the Labour leadership in part having opposed the war on terror and broken a bipartisan foreign policy consensus. So the Conservatives tried to revive old smears linking Corbyn to the IRA. The media played its role. The IRA is defunct, the war over, but media outlets have repeatedly demanded that Jeremy Corbyn condemn the IRA bombing. Typical of this campaign was The Express, reporting a few days before the Manchester bombing on a Corbyn interview, claiming that Corbyn had defended links with the IRA, where he had made no mention of such supposed links. In fact, in the interview in question, Corbyn had insisted on condemning all the bombing rather than letting the loyalists or the British security services off the hook. The Sun had already published a smear story alleging that Corbyn was banned from speaking in a Commons terror debate for being too close to the IRA. In fact, Corbyn was not banned. In 1995, he rose in a parliamentary debate to make an intervention, And the notorious Tory racist Terry Dix MP, who subsequently lost his seat to Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, refused his intervention with the smear that he was too close to the IRA. So what came after the Manchester bomb had clearly been in the works for some time. As a Sky News journalist was recorded saying outside number 10 Downing Street, the attack would benefit May because it plays in her favour. And the Sun didn't miss the opportunity to exploit the dead for maximum impact. Before the first victim had been identified, the Sun newspaper hurried out an editorial saying that innocent people were murdered specifically because Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell sucked up to the IRA. This was not about the Manchester attack, but the headline and subheader deliberately created the impression that it was somehow connected. The front page of the newspaper screamed, "Blood on his hands." Soon, the story was picked up in the other tabloids, such as the Daily Mail. Other media ghouls followed suit. Huffington Post UK's executive editor for politics, Paul Waugh, tweeted sarcastically that Corbyn's failure to mention the word terrorism in his statement on the atrocity was by no means significant. He subsequently deleted the tweet after a deluge of criticism. About May's pre-scripted speech, by contrast, he had only congratulations for the pitch-perfect, stateswoman-like response from Theresa May, heartfelt, resolute, unifying. This sentiment was shared by John Crace of The Guardian, who said that it was difficult to capture a nation's mood, but the PM did it well. With the demonisation of Corbyn as a terrorist sympathiser and the glorification of Theresa May as the Queen of British hearts, the only remaining debate was how to find ways in which security could be bolstered. Sky News, rummaging around for its own answer to the question, found a relatively innocuous angle, locating a witness who said that security did not check bags at the event. It's not even clear that this would have helped, however, since the attacker doesn't seem to have been in the concert. Piers Morgan, the bumptious former Mirror editor turned television personality, interviewed stars of Coronation Street, a popular soap set in Manchester, on the ITV programme Good Morning Britain. When they urged people not to let the response be an anti-Muslim thing, Morgan insisted that
there has to be a more concerted effort by the Muslim community, not just here, but in every country, to root out these people.
Later he repeated this line on his Twitter account, insisting that he was not blaming Muslims, just encouraging them to root out extremists in their midst. Extremists presumably live in all our midst, what makes Morgan certain that the average British Muslim has a direct line to someone planning a suicide attack. Allison Pearson, who writes for The Telegraph, went further, urging, "We need a state of emergency, as France has. We need internment of thousands of terror suspects now to protect our children." Internment of thousands of suspects, who evidently are not suspect enough to be charged or prosecuted, means locking up thousands of Muslims without trial. Notably, the French state of emergency being referenced here involves a raft of emergency powers that have been criticised by human rights bodies worldwide. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have both reported serial abuses by police, particularly using warrantless search and house arrest measures against Muslims. And as HRW has also pointed out, the measures which are supposed to be emergency keep being renewed, as if somehow racist discrimination and letting state hardliners run amok didn't solve the problem of terrorism. Katie Hopkins, the all-round shock jock currently working at the Mail on Sunday and LBC Radio, went much further. We need a final solution. Hopkins subsequently changed her tweet, but she knew what she was doing, and she knew perfectly well what those words referenced. There is currently a campaign to remove Hopkins from her LBC job, but fascistic statements like this are exactly why she gained notoriety in the first place and why media companies employ her. And while all this was being aired, there were some people who knew what not to talk about. In particular, an independent column opined, while racism is bad, one must not criticise Britain's foreign policy at a time like this. As Theresa May took the opportunity to raise the threat level to critical, suggesting that another attack was probably imminent, and send armed forces out into the streets, the Queen's Garden Party was strangely unaffected by the added security. The invitees could be seen outside Buckingham Palace and in its courtyard in festive mood. Still, there was an urgent rally to the government. The Birmingham MAIL reports that Khalid Mahmood MP used the attack to urge people to stop criticising the government's Islamophobic prevent agenda. Finally, and surprisingly, the left-wing journalist Paul Mason urged followers to welcome May sending troops on the streets during a general election campaign as a necessary response to a critical threat of repeat attack. The irony of all this securitarian rhetoric is that it emerged just over a day after the attack that Salman Abdi was not only known to the authorities, but as the Sun of all newspapers reported, his family had warned the authorities about him. The failure was evidently not on the side of muscle, but on the side of intelligence. And if macho posturing covers up the intelligence failure, well, that just sums up the British media.